All right, everybody, it's rumor time here on 10 Minute Marvel. I'm Petter, and today I'm going to be talking about a new rumor that popped up around where Marvel's going to go after the events of Secret Wars. Now, it's no secret that, yeah, all wordplay intended, it's no secret that Marvel's going to start launching the X-Men. We actually are going to be getting original X-Men characters from the Fox X-Men. Well, we've had some in Deadpool and Wolverine. We're going to get more in Doomsday. And then after the events of Secret Wars, the expectation and really confirmation at this point from Kevin Feige is that we're going to start to see X-Men showing up. And that brings up a question. This is where the rumor comes in as who is going to be that first X-Men villain that they face off against. And I'm going to give. Well, no, let's talk about the rumor, and then let's talk about some of the options that make the most sense. So, the rumor, and this one comes from Daniel RPK, who's a scooper. Any scooper has a certain amount of success. Daniel RPK tends to be one of the better ones, but it is worth noting, like all of these rumors, all of these scoops, while Marvel could be discussing that as an option today, that doesn't mean it's going to be where it ends up. So take anything a scooper says, any rumor that we talk about on the podcast with just a grain of salt or two or a pound, depending on where the source is. Daniel RPK, I'd be fairly confident that Marvel is talking about Mr. Sinister as the first villain for the X-Men. Does that mean Mr. Sinister is going to end up being the first villain for the X-Men? Certainly not. There's nothing that says they can't change their mind. But I do believe when there's this scoop that, yes, they have at least discussed it to some extent. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little whiteboard somewhere, some office, with some post-it notes or, dry erase marker. You might as well use that if you have a whiteboard, of different villains who potentially could be that first villain for the X-Men. Now, I think, and I want to talk about some different options here. I think the most obvious option is always going to be Magneto. But I'm really glad to hear, and I haven't heard any rumors yet, that Magneto would be the first villain. The two rumors that I've heard, that I can remember anyways, are Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse. But Magneto obviously makes a lot of sense, and I think if they want to hit I'm not going to call it a home run, but if they want to do something that a ton of people would instantly know and gravitate towards, Magneto makes a whole lot more sense for that first villain. However, I'm also quite opposed to this idea because Magneto's been done. We've seen Magneto as a villain before, and while he's very good, and I'm sure the MCU could do new things with Magneto, I think it's going to be more fun to have Magneto as a character who's maybe sometimes good, sometimes villainous, shows up in and out of the storyline until eventually, way down the line, we can have a big Magneto turn. In fact, I'd love him to be good, going against people's expectations, and then turn at some point in time, because I think that would really create this interesting sense of timing in that as a viewer, we know that Magneto often turns into a bad guy. A bad guy with good points. But when is that twist going to happen? When is he going to look in and go, you know what? I'm sick and tired of humanity. They keep on persecuting mutants. It's time for mutants to fight back and wipe out humanity because mutants are the future. I'm waiting for that. And I don't think that makes sense for a first villain. Then we have Apocalypse. Now, the issue with Apocalypse is we've had Apocalypse again. It's like Magneto, but way less so in a movie that way few fewer people watched. Ooh, that was, for some reason, very hard to say. And it wasn't that great a movie. It'd be kind of like saying, oh, let's do the Dark Phoenix as the first villain here. No, that doesn't make sense. Let's not do the Dark Phoenix. Marvel, do not do the Dark Phoenix. You hear me? But Apocalypse, I think, could make more sense because as compared to Magneto, like I said, there's less familiarity with the character. Magneto is who everybody expects. Apocalypse is going to be somebody who some people know. And building up towards an Age of Apocalypse, I think could be an interesting storyline. Redoing what Fox did, just in a better way. Now, building up to Age of Apocalypse, though, you need some other villains before that. You need some people for the X-Men to deal with. And it can't just be Apocalypse every single time. And we're already getting kind of an Age of Apocalypse in X-Men 97. Or at least that's kind of the feeling that I have for season 2, is it's going to be Apocalypse focused. So would they look at it for the live action and say, we want to do something similar to what the animation is doing? Because the animation is going to do it first. Season 2 of X-Men 97 comes out next year. At least that's the expectation. And yeah, I mean, so does Doomsday. So we still have another year before Secret Wars, and I won't be surprised if another year before X-Men. That then takes us to who I think is probably the best third option. Now, there's certain other things you could do. You could do like a Sentinels story. That feels like a little bit further down the line. You could do Days of Future Past, but that doesn't make that much sense. Again, that's a Sentinel story. You need to have established a direction for the universe already, and something like Days of Future Past to me should only be used in the case where you want to do a soft reset. It's kind of like Secret Wars here. It allows them to do a universal reset in a way that can bring in characters like the X-Men. So I think Mr. Sinister actually is a really good villain. This villain who wants to experiment on X-Men and kind of create this own world of sorts, to like kind of weed out humanity and look for the next evolution of humanity. I think that's really interesting in terms of a story. Now, obviously, they've done Mr. Sinister in the animated X-Men series, but I don't think that that's going to hold anybody back. That's been so long, and for a new audience, I mean, there's going to be a chunk of the audience who didn't watch the 1990s X-Men. I'm old enough that I did. Not all of it, but some of it. So I'm familiar with the character, but I think there's a whole lot they can do and introduce kind of this creepy villain. And this villain who I'm not going to say necessarily is going to be the most sympathetic, but it's going to be different than the High Evolutionary. And I think that's where I'm like, do I like this or not? Is it has to be different from the High Evolutionary. And I think you can do that by potentially stretching it out over a few different films with Mr. Sinister, have him be the one in the background, like bringing in bringing in mutants and kind of being this force that's competing against Xavier for bringing in mutants. Now, for Xavier, he wants to help them and improve their life. Mr. Sinister would then lie about that and really want them for experiments. But let me know your thoughts. Is there an X-Men villain that you would love to see Marvel start out with? Do you think that Magneto would work really well to start out? I mean, Magneto would work really well to start out. It's just, do we need him again immediately? I don't think so. I think there are better options and more interesting options, at least for me, out there. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you enjoy this content, please give the video a thumbs up and check out our full thoughts on this rumor that we'll be covering next week on the 10-Minute Marvel podcast, as well as check out the previous episodes, hear what news and rumors have come out before then, and hear our thoughts on expectations on Thunderbolts, which now it's just a few days until we're going to be seeing that movie. You can find the podcast here on the channel. Click onto the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, click that notification bell so you know when new videos come out, and then click on the podcast tab. Or you can search for 10-Minute Marvel wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcasts from. But with that, we'll see you next time.